guy was super creepy.
Tsulong 25-man heroic is what you might consider a healer fight, similar to ICC's Dreamwalker. And the way that Tsulong works is it rotates between night phase and day phase, back and forth until the boss dies or is topped off to 100% life. In night phase, we are attacking the boss itself in a classic taking down the boss's health sense. However, when it switches to day phase, he becomes our ally and we're trying to heal him up. And the way that these two phases bounce amongst each other is whatever damage you take away from him in night phase is counterversely applied as his health in day phase. And so the boss completes either when we take him down to 0% life in night phase or 100% life in day phase. So the boss will start in night phase and last for 2 minutes and swap back every 2 minutes. During night phase, the boss must be tanked one at a time. That is to say, the tank has to stand by themselves so that the frontal cone only hits them. This frontal cone will apply a significant debuff and is the reason why we have to taunt swap. So it's very important that the tank that is not currently tanking the boss stand off to the side with melee so that they don't accidentally get a debuff applied to them. The raid remains spread around the boss in night phase because of an ability called Nightmares, which will be cast on a random player location, and a large shadow damage at that location and 8 yards around it will be applied, and this will fear them as well for 3 seconds. This fear is dispellable and ideally should be dispelled as quickly as possible. The most important mechanic in night phase involves Dread Shadows, Sunbeams, and in heroic mode, the Dark of Night add. That is to say, there is a stacking debuff called Dread Shadows that builds upon all members of the raid every 2 seconds. It's a Shadow Rod and increases damage taken by its next ticks by 10%. And so it's an aggressively growing debuff that must be controlled. How we control that is strategically having raiders enter sunbeams that appear on the ground. And as raiders seep from this sunbeam, the sunbeam gets smaller and smaller and smaller and then disappears, which means that there's only a limited number of ticks of sunbeam available to reduce the shadow rot from Dread Shadows. In heroic, additionally, the Dark of Night occurs, which is a series of adds that walk towards existing sunbeams. If they touch a sunbeam, the sunbeam just flat out disappears. And so these adds must be killed as quickly as possible. They can be stunned, slowed, and gripped. And so just control them, get them away from sunbeams, and kill them as soon as possible. After 2 minutes, night phase ends and day phase begins. During the day phase, it's all about our healers and ad control. First, unstable Shaws will spawn around the ring of the map and will slowly but surely walk towards the center of the map and touch the boss if they reach there. Any unstable Shaw that reaches the boss does incredible damage to the boss, and unfortunately, in this phase, that's a bad thing because we're trying to raise the boss's health. These mobs will also be casting Unstable Bolt while walking, and this is a pretty significant damage to our raiders. But the side effect is that they do a self-afflicting 15% of their own health when they cast it. These mobs are slowable, stunnable, grippable, and so we just need to control them before they touch the boss. Larger adds called Embodied Terrace will spawn, and these are tanked adds. It's important that the tanks taunt these mobs and bring them to the front of the boss where he's pointing his frontal cone, but making sure that they're facing away from the raid because they themselves do frontals as well as the things that spawn from him. And that's because when an embodied terror dies, it spawns 5 bright spawns underneath them, which do a frontal cone attack if they're allowed to that does a fear on everybody in front as well as significant, perhaps even one-shotting damage. The trick, however, is the boss does a sun breath, which is a frontal cone that does a few things. With regards to these adds, the breath is so powerful that it one-shots the fright spawns. And so our goal as a raid is to make sure that the embodied terrors are tanked in front of the boss and that they die just before the next frontal from the boss is going to happen so that the fright spawns spawn but don't have enough time to do anything and get one-shot by the boss's frontal cone. In addition to all of this, the healers are trying to heal the boss's life up. When a healer stands in the frontal cone of the boss, they get an incredible buff that they must use to return the favor and heal him as much as possible in this phase. In addition, in Heroic, the boss will occasionally spawn Light Wells, which if clicked will give a 6-second massive heal and mana regen buff. It's important to note that this Light Well does not stack with the boss's breath buff, and it is a very limited resource, and so we will strategically time the use of the Light Wells to be counter to when breaths are occurring so that our healers use the buffs as best as possible during the limited time of the day phase.